Hey, happy Thirsty Thursday, everybody. Welcome to The Sweat, a show presented by DraftKings every single freaking day. I'm Emerson Lancia. She is Jessie Cofield. We have a lot coming up in this show this morning. I'm extremely excited about it.
Yeah, the Le Batard crew is going to talk about the new flopping rules. I'm sure that will be a very on the rails.
Damn right. It's about time they buckle down on this stuff. I don't think anyone's been fined for flopping in the NBA for like 3 years.
Well, they're about to be.
The last dude who was fined for flopping in the NBA was Marcus Smart.
All right, well, we'll see it. We're going to have some dudes on to talk NFL player total futures, including Aaron Rodgers' passing yards total. How do we think he's going to do with the Jets? We'll get into that. Going to do an MLB second half preview coming out of the All-Star break here. What is in store for the second half of the season? Because this is where people have to really get down to it, you know, because it gets serious.
We're going to see
who's
like
peaking at the right time.
Yeah, which bets Gary and Thorne may be changing his mind on a little bit.
Sneaky. Also, NHL Summer Slap Shot. We'll get some long shots for 2023 to 2024 with our dudes taking ahead at some futures bets. What do they think could happen in the upcoming season?
Yeah, you know, if we're talking sticky puck on July 13th, it's because it's July 13th and there's not much else going on.
True that! But here we are making it work. And how about we continue to make it work with DK Nation's Chinmay Vaidya.
Hey, buddy. How you doing?
Yeah. Great to have you.
It's been a while. I'm happy to be here, happy to talk some basketball, and we'll see if the flopping rules actually work. I don't know if the refs can even tell if anyone's flopping or they're actually getting fouled. So.
Or if that's just the way the game is.
Works. And the last thing we want to, Chinmay, is like them stopping the game more to look at like video reviews to see if a flop is real or not.
I mean, maybe it will just pressure the players to stop flopping. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
No way, dude. As long as Marcus Smart is here, there won't be flopping.
All right, Chinmay, Summer League's still going on, okay? But it kind of doesn't feel like it because a lot of the big names have been shut
Wemby's
down.
done.
Wemby,
Boo!
he's done. Yeah, boo. So is Summer League still going if Wemby's not playing, apparently? Is there a way to attack this back half of Summer League, though, now that a lot of the big names are out of commish?
It may feel that way, that the Summer League is actually not that prominent because some of these big players are no longer playing. But now's the time when teams are actually qualifying for that playoff bracket, the semifinal spots, to actually make the final. So this is where if you did take futures on a Summer League team winning the whole thing, this is where those are going to start to kind of get into play and start to pay off a little bit. The Cavs, Rockets, and Jazz are still undefeated. And if they remain undefeated, they are going to make that Final Four bracket. So I would look at one of those teams. Both the Cavs and Rockets play today. Maybe if they both win today, you throw something on each of them. Maybe the Cavs have a little more juice because the Rockets have shut down Jabari Smith and Tyree Eason. So Cleveland might be the play here. They are the favorites right now to win at the DK Sportsbook, listed at plus 220. So a pretty solid number. If they can win today, they play in the early afternoon. They're going to be locked into a playoff spot, and I would take Cleveland on a futures bet.
Okay, Spurs 2-1, by the way, in the Summer League. And we mentioned Wemby. We mentioned that he's been shut down. How about an interesting prop for him and the Spurs on the DK Sportsbook here, Chinmay? Let's start with 35-plus regular season victories. How much do you like that number?
Not tremendously, just because Wembanyama might be shut down in the regular season as well at some point. You just don't know how the Spurs are going to manage this guy. I think a lot of people are looking at what the Thunder did last year, winning 40 games, coming out of nowhere, and feeling that the Spurs could be that type of team. And it really just hinges on, is Wembanyama the real deal? And, you know, you can put up dominant numbers against Summer League players, but the NBA is a different beast, and he's going to have to make some adjustments. We don't know that he's going to have the type of performances that some of Oklahoma City's role players had in their way to 40 wins. And even 40 wins was kind of tough for them. They snuck up on some teams. I don't know that the Spurs are exactly going to sneak up on teams in a loaded Western Conference. So I would stay away from 35 games. I think it's about the right number if you're kind of looking at win totals, like in the mid 30s, low 30s range. I think that's about right for the Spurs, because the West is going to be very difficult, and San Antonio might decide to ultimately, throw in the tank a little bit at the end of the season.
Chinmay, what are we doing here? The kid's 19. He can play every single day, every minute of every game.
He should be able to. And that's just kind of the way the NBA works with
Soft.
superstar players. I mean, we saw it with the 76ers with Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons. Guys are, going to take their time, and teams are going to be careful with their investment. I mean, this guy is the number 1 overall pick, but he's also 7'4", and the style that he plays at, it's scary every time he lands on the ground. I'm sure Spurs fans and Spurs executives were holding their breath every time he took a jump shot and landed on the ground and ended up on the floor completely, even during summer league. So we'll see exactly what the Spurs are doing in terms of record. If they have a shot at a playoff spot, I think he'll keep playing. But if they're 5 or 6 games out of that final play-in spot with like 20 games left, there's a chance he might get shut down.
He actually said, he's like, I think I have a lot of conditioning work I need to do, because he was gassed. I mean, we're saying like, oh, he's 19, he should be able to play in all these games.
He should.
But he said himself, he's like, I think I have a lot of conditioning work to do.
He's also like, basketball is more physical in Europe than in the NBA. And I'm like, because you've played in 2 freaking summer league games in the NBA, buddy. Wait till the regular season starts and you got Jokic, who's no longer hanging out with us horses in Serbia, that he's getting backed down by the Joker.
Yeah, he's got some conditioning to do. He's got some lifting to do. So, Chinmay, let's say he does all those things. How about Wemby to score 40-plus in any game this season? It's at plus 300. It's it's not a crazy number for a superstar. Obviously, it's going to be his first year in the league. What do you think about this number? Can he get to it? He's going to have plenty of chances unless, like you said, he gets shut down for a while at some point during the regular season.
So of the 2 bets that you mentioned, Spurs 35 wins and Wemby 40-plus points, I like this one a lot more than the Spurs one. My only concern here is, once again, the way Greg Popovich operates with rookies and with big men in general. Tim Duncan, early in his career, didn't exactly drop 40 points a game. He wasn't getting the ball all that often. He was in the high 20s, low 30s. So, there's a chance that Wembanyama doesn't exactly get those touches right away. The Spurs have some high usage players in Keldon Johnson and Devin Vassell, who are probably going to get more usage. And they have Malachi Branham, who's coming off some strong summer league games as well, who's probably going to get extended run in the rotation. I do think Wembanyama will come close to this number, and I would throw something on this if you're interested in a Spurs bet. I would throw something on this instead of San Antonio's win total, because I just think there are too many variables with the Spurs in terms of win totals. But Wembanyama should have a few good efforts against a few soft opponents where he can come close to 40 points a game. I think that's one that I would feel confident in paying off on.
Chimay, what do you think about this first edition of the in-season tournament in Vegas that the NBA has announced recently? Because now the Celtics plus 700 to win that thing. What's the move right now this early?
Well, the move right now is to do nothing, because we have no idea exactly what's going to happen. They're going to have tiebreakers after teams have played 4 or 5 games. In my opinion, this was a big missed opportunity for the NBA in terms of elevating some of the regular season, because when does the regular season really start to kind of get dry? In January, February, before the All-Star break. What if you had this tournament before the All-Star break and there was a playoff spot on the line? Then would teams have more incentive to play their top guys in this tournament? But also, if you give a playoff spot away in this NBA in-season tournament, then what's the value of the rest of the regular season? I don't know that this was really an issue that needed to be solved. And it's funny because Adam Silver has talked about this for a few seasons now, saying that the product actually wasn't that poor in the regular season, and this load management was not something that he felt was detrimental to the league as a whole. But obviously, this in-season tournament shows otherwise. I just don't know that this was really necessary, and we'll see how it works. But the promotion for it has been a bit over the top, in my opinion.
Yeah, so this thing starts, in December? Is that when, I
believe it starts in November. I believe it starts right away, a couple weeks into the regular season. And 5 or 6 games in, we're going to have, or 5 or 6 cup games in, we're going to have teams who have already qualified for the playoffs and the championship.
Yeah.
And I believe those are going to be in early December. So it's going to be very quick right away. And I think most players are still caring about the regular season at that point. So I don't know that this was really needed here.
No, for sure. And I think you absolutely nailed it. This thing should have been January, February, because people still don't start paying attention to the NBA until what? Christmas Day. Christmas Day is really when it's like, okay, let's kind of sit around and watch some NBA all day. But now the NFL's stealing some of its thunder there. But.
Yeah, well, still a lot of questions
Yes.
that need to be answered before the season actually starts. But Chinmay, which NBA futures do you think can bring the best value at like this point in the summer? Obviously, we're still in the summer here.
Yeah, so I think the Milwaukee Bucks have kind of been under the radar a little bit. They didn't have the best offseason in terms of bringing in a new player. You know, they brought back Middleton, they brought back Lopez, they brought back Jay Crowder. So they brought back some of those key guys that are going to be part of that championship caliber rotation. And I think at plus 850, they have more than, you know, a puncher's chance at winning this whole thing, because really they just have to get past Boston, who's the favorite in the East right now. And then they have to go against one of the teams in the West, whoever will come out of the West. Milwaukee only has to beat one of those teams, as opposed to a potential West champion would have to go through 4 or 5 top teams. So I really like Milwaukee at that number. And then Miami right now, I don't think that number is factoring in a Damian Lillard trade. And as much as we've talked about Damian Lillard wanting to go to Miami and the Trailblazers not quite budging, I think eventually Lillard will end up with the Heat. I think there will be some type of agreement there, and we'll see exactly what type of pieces are going back to Portland. But I do think that Dame coming to Miami would give the Heat a great shot at winning the title as well. So I like Miami at that number right now. It'll probably go down if they do indeed acquire Lillard, which I think ultimately happens. So I would like the Bucks and the Heat as those two spots. Out West, I think it's hard to pick against Denver right now, just given the way they went through the conference this postseason. So I would like Denver out in the West, and then in the East, Milwaukee and Miami are my 2 plays.
And Chinmay, depending on where you look, I believe Damian Lillard has been listed as the favorite to win MVP of that in-season tournament as
Although
well.
apparently it could be months before that trade is figured out.
Yeah,
so.
for sure, for sure. Chinmay, you're the man. Thank you kindly for that. We're going to dive a little deeper now into the crackdown on flopping that the NBA is planning to do. So here's the crew over at the Le Batard Show to give their take on just how effective they believe this new rule will be.
Okay, flop.
Damn.
James Harden can no longer do the thing where he pretends like something terrible has happened to him in exchange for some reward.
He can do it, but he'll just cost his team a technical foul, and that's going to try to stop flopping. I think it's totally ineffective. If I'm coaching a team, I'm going for the flop still.
Wait, so the rule now is a technical foul is assessed, non-unsportsmanlike,
Which means it doesn't count toward your ejection, doesn't count toward the Draymond Green situation.
but there is a free throw
And possession.
and if, of course, your challenge is successful, it does not count against your tally of challenges.
That's 2 separate things. You're conflating the 2 things because you were watching the baseball game. The flopping rule is the rule. Then there's another thing about coaches' challenges. It has nothing to do with flopping.
So the point being, noted, the point being that these 2 rule changes are changing the physics of in-game decision-making in the NBA.
Yes, the challenge one is a big one because it used to be coaches had 1 challenge, and we'd spend all sorts of time. Why are you using your challenge now? It's too early. Now you can use your challenge, and if you win,
Yes.
you get another challenge. If you lose, you're done. So you better have good video, people.
But the point about the flopping stuff is that this had been a letter of the law issue that forever had been exploited to the consternation of everybody, but it had become an art form. Marcus Smart is on that side of the aisle with Trae Young and James Harden. These guys who become stuntmen and have a craft in so doing that has been wildly effective because there had not been a penalty. And so a big question at the league office, David, always faces is how to keep up with people who are gaming the system, who are exploiting the letter of the law in contravention of its spirit.
You're always going to be behind. The league office is always behind. It's the same with drug testing. It's the same with the salary cap. The league is always chasing its tail. Do you know the definition of flopping that I had not realized until this story broke? And it was rumored, and I talked about it on Nothing Personal because I was shocked by this. You can be accused of a flop if your intent was to mislead the referee. I love that.
I
love that the referee
yes.
is involved, that your intent is not to draw the foul, or your intent is you just got beaten, so you might as well try to flop even when you're not gotten hit. If they can somehow look inside your brain and say you're trying to show up the referee or make the crowd go against them, there's stuff like this in baseball.
But that is what a flop is. I'm confused what a flop is trying to trying to make the ref think something happened that didn't.
It's trying to draw an offensive foul, or it's trying to exaggerate the contact that already existed.
You're
But
not
why
including
else-
charges.
But why else would they be doing it other than for the referee? Like, the referee's an obvious part of a flop. Like,
I thought they want to make it easier on the referees, but you still have the challenge. So the rule now says that if the referee believes it's a flop, they call the flop, and then you can challenge it if you want. But I don't think people will. And then the penalty is the technical foul.
I mean, clearly you're not including charges in this situation near the restricted area, right? Going towards the basket. on a
Behind the
drive.
dotted line,
Yeah, or in front of the dotted line in this case.
that would just be an offensive foul. I thought that put the dotted line in there again to help the referees. So I assumed the flop rule was to help the referees.
I believe the flop rule is going to encourage referees to be judges and juries in which they are going to assess, was this person's seeming incompetence, them falling down, or their apparent injury, is this something that was done with malice? Was it done with the intent to mislead? And they're going to be the ones deciding that, which means that the theater of this, the theater of pleading, the theater of trying to convince them that actually this thing was authentic, I was authentically clumsy, or I was authentically so seemingly lying about this because I was, in fact, I lost my footing.
Doesn't this exist in soccer, where it's theater, where you're trying to explain? I saw this on Ted Lasso. Hey, stay down. He said, Sam, stay down. When you get up, I'm going to want you to limp. You got to look like you're hurt. I assume that's what's always going on in soccer.
Across all sports, though.
Who flops in football?
I mean, the idea that you would fake an injury.
Wide receivers, cornerbacks, like pass interference calls, there's always
Oh,
flop.
like
Yes.
pretending-
Quarterbacks have
Yes.
flopped famously.
a receiver like flailing his arms like he was held.
flail.
Yeah.
But all of that stuff, the theatrics of drawing the attention of a referee, what these rules are now trying to do is say, if you try to do that and we notice that you're trying to lie to us, that is a technical foul.
All right, guys, it's never too early to start prepping for the NFL season, and our good friends over at VSiN, they know that because they've already released their betting guide for the upcoming season. The VSiN 2023 NFL betting guide is out, and it's got predictions, best bets for the coming season. VSiN experts offer their opinions on player props, season win totals, all that good stuff, and it is only available to VSiN Pro subscribers. So sign up now and get early bird pricing, okay? A discount.
Yes.
Go to vsin.com/NFL guide for more.
All right, let's bring in one of those VSiN experts right now, Mr. Tim Murray, DK contributor Jeff Ulrich, also known from time to time as being an expert. Let's look into the future here. Once again, breaking out those big, beefy crystal balls.
Why
Tim,
do you have to
did it here.
describe them that way?
That's just the way it is,
I
man.
hate you.
Okay,
Continue.
I hate myself too. Tim, you did this with us yesterday. We talked some team futures. We are going to dive into some player futures now. It's the NFL. You know we got to start at quarterback, and we got to start with the man, the myth, the legend, Aaron Rodgers. So his regular season passing yards total in his first year in New York, 3950 and a half. Is that a good number to target? How much do you like that number for Aaron Rodgers?
So last year, Aaron Rodgers threw for just a shade under 3,700 yards. And it's always tricky for me, guys, betting into these season totals and wanting to go over. Your first inclination is, and I remember learning the hard way a couple of years ago, I think it might have actually been last year with Michael Thomas, who the over-under on his receiving yards was set at 800. And I said, why? Of course he's going to go over that. Well, you got to remember, injuries are kind of a big part of this, especially when you look at someone like Michael Thomas. So, going back to 3,900 yards for Aaron Rodgers, it's certainly achievable. I mean, you look at the numbers, guys, that were out there last year. Patrick Mahomes led all of the NFL with 5,200 passing yards. I do wonder, with Aaron Rodgers, and as I mentioned, threw for around 3,700 yards last year. With a solid run game, with Brees Hall coming back and certainly Brees Hall was on his way to potentially winning Rookie of the Year prior to his injury. Do they rely sometimes on that rushing game, rushing attack? So, I understand why people with the weapons that are there, with Garrett Wilson and Alan Lazard coming over from Green Bay, that over would be the way to look. I always get a little bit worried racing to an over, guys, because injuries could set in, and this could ultimately, we'll see with the Jets, they could be a kind of a more of a run-based team with a stud and Brees Hall in the backfield.
All right, Jeff, is this too high of a bar, too high of a number for Aaron Rodgers to clear in his first year with the Jets?
I mean, it's not too high of a bar, as Tim said, but again, I would lean with Tim and say that the under is probably the play here. I mean, I actually kind of like the under in this one. You got an aging quarterback, a team with a good defense, and a solid run game. This is not the total that I would be attacking and over with. Anything, I would take the under. It's, again, first year in a new system for a guy who's never been on his first new team in his entire career. If you're looking for an over, I would attack a younger quarterback with just a suppressed total. Daniel Jones, 3,300 yards. We saw Daniel Jones get to 3,205 yards last year in 16 games. And, the Giants were 24th in yards per pass attempt. But what have they done in the offseason? Added a great yards after the catch receiver in Darren Waller. Added Jalen Hyatt, who averaged 18 yards per catch. The training wheels are going to come off here for Daniel Jones in the second year in Brian Daboll's offense, just like they did for Josh Allen, who saw massive bumps in his second year with Brian Daboll. So I like Daniel Jones. If you're looking for an over, I think Daniel Jones' totals are just suppressed right now. No one thinks that necessarily there's much more upside, but I think there's a lot more upside. And you just have to look at what the Giants have been doing. They've been adding passing weapons. They're going to pass more in 2023.
All right, guys, you can also look at who's going to lead the league in certain categories. You got Nick Chubb at plus 450, top of the board to be the NFL rushing champion. This is Jeff's dude. Jeff, do you like Chubb in this spot? Jonathan Taylor, Derrick Henry at plus 650 right behind him.
Yeah, there's some names behind here, certainly with better odds. I mean, you think plus 450, it's not that big a total, and we're talking about running backs that get injured a lot. But I mean, Chubb is probably the best early down rusher in the NFL. Not probably, he is, and he's one of the only, running backs in the NFL with a high volume of carries to average over 5 yards per carry in his career. And the thing is, you just look at the situation. He's in a run-first offense. Kevin Stefanski's offense is top 10 in rush attempts per game in the last 3 years. They're going to run the ball. There's no backup. Hunt is gone. D'Ernest Johnson's gone. Jerome Ford might get some run, but it's going to be the Nick Chubb show. It's in a very good spot here. If I was looking to take a long shot, what I would do, I'd target another guy who's in a really good spot, and it's Cam Akers of the Los Angeles Rams. But I would take him in the leading rushing touchdown category. Cam Akers is plus 3,500 to lead the league in rushing touchdowns. Sean McVay loves to ride one guy. There's no goal line back on the Rams to steal carries from inside the red zone from Cam Akers. Kieran Williams isn't coming in and taking carries in the red zone. It's Cam Akers. Cam Akers had 6 touchdowns in his last 6 games. He averaged 21 carries per game in his last 3 games last year. Cam Akers is going to get a ton of work. Plus 3,500 is really good. And let's just not forget, Todd Gurley led the league under Sean McVay in rushing touchdowns in 2 seasons, 2 of his 6 seasons with the Rams. So Cam Akers plus 3,500 to lead the league in touchdowns. That's a running back prop I really like.
All right, Tim, do you like Chubb to lead the league? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm with Jeff in this. I don't like to play the favorite, but it's not a situation where we're laying juice or we were talking about the Arizona Cardinals yesterday at 2-1 to have the least amount of wins in the NFL. So yeah, I think plus 450 is actually a pretty good price on Nick Chubb. And once again, you're playing into these futures markets, so injuries absolutely play a factor. But remember this, everything that Jeff mentioned is factual about the Browns and how they want to go about business. Also, the fact that Deshaun Watson is back there kind of, having a spy to keep an eye on him might open up things a little bit more for Chubb, that threat of the run. And then lastly, the Cleveland Browns, have one of, if not the best offensive line in the entire NFL. So I think at plus 450, it's, more than a fair price. If you're looking for a long shot, a little bit further down the board, a little pizza money, as I like to say. I think Damian Pierce is interesting in Houston. He's going to be the main guy there, rushed for almost 1,000 yards in his rookie season. And you've got a rookie quarterback, right? CJ Stroud. You're not going to want to just have to totally rely on CJ Stroud slinging it all over the yard. So I think Damian Pierce as a long shot, I think 35-1 I saw. Maybe worth a little bit of a look, but I think Chubb is the rightful favorite, and I actually think at plus 450 is actually an intriguing price, and it's not suppressed, in my opinion, too much.
All right, Tim, looking at wide receivers here, we got not one, not two, but three guys with season receiving totals listed at 1,300 yards or more. Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, Justin Jefferson, Cooper Kupp, Jamar Chase, just right behind him there in that department. Give me another receiver, though, maybe a little further down the board, who you think could have a breakout year and hit those numbers.
Yeah, I mean, I think, a lot of people have been talking about Dallas lately. I mean, you look at a guy like CeeDee Lamb, he's 22-1 to lead the league in receiving. So I think, there's a possibility, with it being the Tony Pollard show now in the backfield. Could we see more slinging it there from the Dallas Cowboys? When you look at CeeDee Lamb last year, he had 1,300 receiving yards, over 100 receptions. So CeeDee Lamb's an interesting one in that regard. Does Amon-Ra St. Brown continue to kind of take a step in the right direction there for Detroit? We know all the hype around Detroit heading into this year. And remember, Jameson Williams going to be suspended for the first 6 games there due to the gambling situation. So I think Amon-Ra St. Brown, if he continues to kind of emerge here, I know they're a team that in Detroit that did spend the 12th overall pick on a running back. So they could be relying on the run game a decent amount as they went out and got David Montgomery in free agency too. But, if you're looking for those long shots, obviously, you look at most regular season receiving yards, and it's the names with Jefferson, Chase, and Kupp. Devontae Adams really intrigues me, though, guys. Just going back to one of the favorites. Is this going to be a situation where I think the Raiders are really going to take a step back, but could he have a monster year like he did a couple years ago in Green Bay, where they knew every pass was going to him and he still made every single play? So I'm not necessarily racing to take a Devontae Adams prop at this point, but I'm very curious about the season that he'll have with no Darren Waller. Josh Jacobs is still holding out. The Jimmy G situation with his injury, is he going to be healthy? But I think Devontae Adams, could he be in store for just one of those epic seasons like he did just a couple years ago in Green Bay?
Yeah, Jeff, what's interesting here is while Kupp and Chase are not top 3 in specific receiving yardage totals here that we're talking about, they are top 3 in the market for most receiving yards.
Right. Yeah, and I mean,
leading the league.
I mean, these guys are completely consistent, just year-to-year ballers. I mean, of course, Chase, Kupp, Jefferson, you would expect them to be leading there. I'm going to go with another player, though, if you're looking for just a breakout type of year. I mean, I think Chris Olave is that guy. I mean, well over 1,000 yards in his rookie season in just 15 games, 26% team target share, 8th in air yards, 4th in deep targets. I mean, Chris Olave is a sub-4 440 guy. He's a big receiver. He's a great route runner. There is no reason why he doesn't have a lot more ceiling left to go here. And, again, he's only got 1,000 yards. Like, his over-under on DraftKings is only 1,000 yards. I think that's a great over target right now. I mean, again, you don't want to bet overs all the time here, but, I think that's a great target. And I also think that if you just want a little bit of a lower investment, taking him to lead the league in receiving yards isn't a bad idea. Again, you can hoop on Derek Carr all you want. He is an upgrade over Andy Dalton. I don't really care what the stats were from last year for Derek Carr. I just didn't really like what I was seeing from him in that offense. I think he's going to be an upgrade for Olave, and I think Olave has a ton of upside left. So he would be my target there for a real breakout candidate.
Jeff, let's talk some rookie futures here. Bryce Young leading the way as a minus 120 favorite to be the rookie passing leader. Do you think he's the best bet here? CJ Stroud threw for more yards than Young at the collegiate level in 2022, and he's plus 105 right behind him.
Yeah, but I don't like the situation. There's a big difference in the situation and the landing spots here. The Panthers are basically all in on Bryce Young. They're not bringing in Andy Dalton to start games or anything like that unless he gets hurt. Bryce Young is a great supporting cast. Thielen, DJ Chark, even Terrace Marshall, who's been there. They drafted Jonathan Mingo. they're building around Bryce Young. And I think that with Frank Reich as their coach, I think that's a great sign. Obviously former quarterback. I think Bryce Young's just in a very good spot to succeed, at least from a stat perspective in year one. And CJ Stroud is a guy I almost brought up during the passing total. I think he's a good under target at 3,400. I just think CJ Stroud has too many roadblocks. There's too many headwinds for CJ Stroud. Does not have an elite receiver core. He's got a defensive-minded head coach. They're going to want to run the ball because their best offensive player is Dameon Pierce. I just don't think CJ and I mean Davis. I didn't even mention the Davis Mills thing. I mean, again, he's splitting. CJ Stroud was splitting first-team reps with Davis Mills already. There's no guarantee that Davis Mills doesn't start a few games. When you're talking a head-up battle here, which is basically what it's going to be, because I just don't have enough confidence that Anthony Richardson is necessarily going to be like a high-volume passer. I think that Bryce Young has a real advantage here. I actually think the minus 120 is a very good number on Bryce Young.
Tim, you mentioned earlier the Texans don't want to be relying on Stroud to be slinging it all the time anyways.
Yeah, no, this is a market personally probably wouldn't look to bet into unless I'm just going to take an absolute flyer. And with quarterbacks, rookie quarterbacks, you kind of need them to be a day one starter. From all indications, it looks like it will be Bryce Young. I would assume C.J. Stroud will get the job. I think Anthony Richardson at 20-1 may be intriguing, but he's certainly up and down. I think Gardner Minshew will get certainly some burn. If you just want to just put a $5 play on something, a wild card here, I'm telling you, look at Aiden O'Connell. I don't love Aiden O'Connell coming out of Purdue, but I think the situation is really interesting with the Jimmy Garoppolo injury history in the past. So look, I'm not championing, hey, this is the best play ever, but at 150-1, Aiden O'Connell, the 4th-round pick out of Purdue to the Raiders, I'm intrigued by it because of Devontae Adams being on that roster, and who knows, they might just start slinging it if Jimmy G goes down. There's a strong likelihood Aiden O'Connell doesn't even see the field this year, guys. But at 150-1, maybe just a little sprinkle on there just in case Jimmy Garoppolo's injuries past steps up, and they're going to say, why are we putting out Brian Hoyer? Let's just see what we've got in Aiden O'Connell, the 4th-round pick out of Purdue.
All right, we're going to move over to the shotgun seat right now. We're going to let you two take the wheel before you guys take off. I need you to give us a player future. Tim, we'll start with you that you like right now in July on this 13th day of this month ahead of training camps opening next week.
All right. Well, we'll stick with the rookies. I mean, I think there's a lot of interesting markets out there and some, long shot odds out there. So the rookie to have the most receiving yards, Jordan Addison is the favorite. Then you've got Jackson Smith and Jigba, who's in Seattle. Quentin Johnston, good reports coming out of the Chargers camp so far, or I guess early workouts, I should say, at 6-1. But the guy that really fascinates me this year, and I love the fit, and I think this is the type of player that Josh Allen will absolutely love, is Dalton Kincaid. Dalton Kincaid is not your typical tight end. He's not going to really put his hand in the ground and block a ton. He's a pass-catching tight end. And if you want to see a case of that, go watch the USC-Utah game from earlier last year. Not the championship game, but the one in Salt Lake City where he had, I think, 16 catches for like 250 yards. So, 20-1 right now to lead all rookies in receiving yards is certainly a long shot. And then you look at, Dalton Kincaid at 35-1 to win Rookie of the Year. I just love that fit. Obviously, there's something going on with Stephon Diggs. I assume Stephon Diggs will ultimately play and have some big numbers, but I think Dalton Kincaid was overwhelmingly applauded. The selection of him late in the first round by the Bills, and I think he and Josh Allen will have a really good rapport early on. So I'm excited to see that year, and I think Kincaid is someone to kind of target in some of those markets, whether it be overs and fantasy football style things, or just some long shots in the award market or the most receiving yards market for a rookie.
Jeff, what direction do you want to take us in here?
I mean, I'm tempted to just go with a Christian Watson prop, but I'm going to go to the defensive rookie of the year category. Let's just take Jalen Carter plus 650. You look at this. I mean, he was widely touted as to being the most talented player in the draft until obviously some off the field stuff, and then he showed up not in great condition at the combine. But I mean, he is going to the Philadelphia Eagles, a marquee team, and if you look at this award, defensive rookie of the year, the last 4 winners, they've all been top 15 draft picks. they've all gone off at like shorter odds. And I don't think going to the top of the board here is a big deal at all. Jalen Carter could absolutely wreck this league with the Eagles. He's supremely talented up front. I just think that he should be the favorite in this category. I mean, Will Anderson, solid player, but I mean, again, you're talking about a guy in Jalen Carter who was the best player in college for most of the year. He's going to like a more marquee team. He's going to get more hype and media attention because of it. And, there's just too big a gap here. I think that the odds at plus 650 are very fair for Jalen Carter.
All right, good stuff, guys. Appreciate the time. As always, we are going to continue to look ahead, but we're going to look at the second half of the MLB season coming up next.
Okay.
But first, a new show debuted this week on the DraftKings Network. Take a little sneak peek.
Welcome to the very inaugural episode of Oddball. I hate that name.
Really? Well, we have a sign.
This show is not like your regular TV show.
Welcome to Bold or Spicy. We get to choose a take that is either bold or spicy.
What's the difference between bold and spicy?
I don't know. I was handed these cards. This isn't my game. I didn't make these up.
We exist in the multiverse. One day we might be here. You had a chance to go to G League Ignite. You chose against it. Why don't you like money?
I do love money.
The next we might be somewhere else.
We've been at Summer League for a few days, but it's Vegas, so it could have been a few years. There's no way of knowing.
I still don't understand the premise of this game, by the way, but I just said yes.
I'm doing my best. I don't either.
How many new cousins or new family members have you discovered since the draft?
Probably five to seven.
Oh, nice.
You're actually my cousin. You remember? I have a picture of us, all type of stuff like that. Hopefully none of them are watching this.
They got Chris Stapps. Okay, I get it. He's tall. What are they going to make him do?
Luckily, I have another
Play
rookie.
Well, no, they're not going to make him play basketball. He wants to play
Yeah,
basketball.
Fair.
It's brought to you by Flamin' Hot Cheetos.
Is it?
Should. Now it is. What color rubber gloves? I need an image.
Yellow.
Yellow.
That's how you know. That's a serious
yellow.
color.
That's a serious cleaning color. This is
Yeah.
brought to you by Nashville Hot Chicken.
Is it?
This is just, we're just.
We may not be dressed the same. We may not be in the same location. You gotta stop drinking. But this is the show.
I'm doing a bit.
You're doing a very poor bit.
Well, thank you.
And we're not gonna change for anybody.
Ever.
Welcome to Oddball.
Very cool stuff. Very
I
cool.
love it.
Yep.
I love our shows, and this network is thriving right now. It is blossoming.
You know who else we love?
Blossoming.
DraftKings contributor Gary and Thorne, who is here with us
Hey.
to look ahead to the unofficially official second half of Major League Baseball season.
Yeah.
You know, so we talked with you yesterday about some award futures here, but we didn't get to some team futures, okay, Gary? And so let's do that. For World Series odds, we have the Braves plus 330, Dodgers
Really?
plus 550, Rays plus 600, Astros plus 800 as the four teams under that plus 1,000 threshold to win it all. But Garion, are there any dark horses lurking here that you think could come out and make a run? I mean, as we've seen, it's all about who's peaking at the right time.
Yeah, I mean, I just think in general the American League is a little bit more open than the National League. I think the Braves are pretty daunting at the top of the NL. Obviously, the Dodgers can find their footing, maybe get a little healthy. They're pretty good too. So I'm going to take an American League dark horse, and honestly, I'm shocked they're a dark horse. But the Baltimore Orioles are still 22-1 to win the World Series. Those are better odds than the Blue Jays, the Yankees, the Astros. Again, some of this is reputation. Some of this is just looking at the 26-man roster and going, well, those guys have better players. But the fact of the matter is the Orioles have put themselves over the first 90 games of the season in a much better position, a much safer position to actually make the playoffs, which it's a highly contested field in the American League wildcard right now. The Orioles are only 2 games back of the Rays for the AL East crown at the moment. Like, they've been playing really, really well. Obviously, their pitching is a bit of a question mark at this point, but still, you look at Grayson Rodriguez, who's tearing up AAA right now, obviously struggled when he was in the majors back in April and May, but a sub-2 ERA, striking out 33% of batters in the minors right now. If he can come up and be the guy we thought he could be, that's someone they can start in a playoff game. And also, they have so many prospects. Their farm system is so crazy deep. They could easily be one of the more active teams at the trade deadline in the next coming weeks. So I think the Orioles are still going to get better. I don't think the roster they have now is the roster they'll be going into October with. And I think that really screams value at 22-1.
And you could get over 90.5 wins for said Orioles. Even money right now, plus 100, Gary Bear, on the DK Sportsbook, as the second half does kick off tomorrow around Major League Baseball. Let's revisit the win total department. Is there a team you like to go over its current total on the DK Sportsbook, or maybe under?
So this is going to seem like the trendy pick, and I'm just throwing money at a fun team, but the Cincinnati Reds to go over 84.5 wins are even money at plus 100. To go over 84.5 wins, all they would have to do is play 35 and 36 baseball the remainder of the way. I'll remind you, since Elly De La Cruz was called up on June 6th, this team is 23 and 8. I really don't know what they have to do to earn a little bit of respect. They are also not favored to win the National League Central, despite the fact they are currently leading the National League Central. I think they're plus 130 to take that down. I mean, look, they're not going to play 700 winning percentage baseball the remainder of the way, but this isn't about just one guy either. I mean, even if Elly gets cold, Matt McClain has been fantastic, a 131 WRC plus this season. You've got Spencer Steer, a former top prospect who's almost forgotten about with this current wave of top prospects that the Reds have been able to call up. He's got 14 home runs this season. Joey Votto has come off the IL and just posted a 404 isolated power. Suddenly he's just Max Muncy for the Cincinnati Reds. They have such a good lineup. In fact, across the last 30 days, the only team in baseball with a higher WOBA than the Cincinnati Reds are obviously the Atlanta Braves. And they don't even really count because I don't think they're real. So right now, among mortal teams, the Reds have the best and hottest offense in baseball. I think that carries them across the second half. Again, they're mostly just playing other NL Central teams the rest of the way. They can definitely take advantage of that schedule.
And Elly De La Cruz, by the way, second in the NL Rookie of the Year odds right now, plus 250 behind only Corbin Carroll, who, by the way, his surgically repaired shoulder has given us a scare, not once but twice over the past couple of weeks. Something to consider.
Hey, Gary, and with the expanded playoff format, is there value to be found in that to make the playoffs bet? You can get the Reds for plus 100.
Yeah, I think that's perfectly fine. I think it's like they could win 85 games and still not make the playoffs, just with other teams and how they produce over the second half. So I'd rather the win total bet than the make the playoffs bet. But I don't hate it. And there's some combination bets also on the DraftKings Sportsbook with making the playoffs that the Reds are involved in that maybe people can take a look at. But my favorite to make or miss the playoff bet at the moment is probably the Yankees to miss the playoffs at plus 130. Yes, Aaron Judge is probably going to be back in late July, early August. We don't really have a definitive timeline, but the Yankees look pretty lost right now. And even with Judge, even with Carlos Correa coming back and making a start before the All-Star break, the Yankees, an 87 WRC plus the last 30 days, just a team that really doesn't look right. They don't have the depth in their lineup they normally have. They don't have the depth in their rotation that they normally have. And also, the schedule is not friendly to the New York Yankees the remainder of the season. They've got a pretty average strength of schedule on paper. However, among American League teams, they have the fewest remaining home games in the second half of the season. So they're going to be on the road a lot. And really, when you just sit down and kind of work this out in your head, let's say the Rays win the AL East, one of the Orioles, Blue Jays, Yankees, and Astros is just not going to make the playoffs. I think the Orioles are going to make it. So let's say one of the Blue Jays, Yankees, or Astros, there's just not enough room. And that's not even considering the fact the Red Sox have been playing really good baseball. The Mariners are above 500 and have a really easy second half of the season schedule. I just think the numbers game catches up with the Yankees here, and they miss out on the playoffs for a year they've been incredibly underwhelmed.
And you also got to consider the trade deadline coming up as well, Gary. And like August 1st, which of these teams are going to be like, all right, we're all in for this, run to the playoffs as the hunt for October arrives soon. On top of making the playoffs and that tab on the DK Sportsbook here, what about a playoff parlay? pairing two teams together to make the postseason. Which combo do you like?
So you could go with the exact inverse of what I just said. There is a prop where the Astros, Orioles, and Blue Jays all make the playoffs. So if you're someone who thinks the Yankees aren't going to make it, that could be pretty enticing. Although betting on all three wild cards is a little nerve-wracking for me. I think the one I like the most is the Rangers and the Astros to both make the playoffs. That's at plus 110. The Rangers, they've tapered off a little bit, but they are still hitting the cover off the baseball. I think they are pretty secure in making a playoff spot, even if they end up surrendering the division to the Astros. But the Astros are really the key here. I think that they've been pretty underwhelming the first half of the season, but Yordan Alvarez is expected back in a couple of weeks. Jose Altuve is expected back sometime in the next week. This lineup is going to get healthy, and this is a team that has not been playing its best baseball all season long, yet is still in a wild card spot because that's how good the Astros are. That's how much pitching depth, specifically starting pitching depth, they have in their organization. The Astros also have the 5th easiest remaining strength of schedule in baseball. A lot of games against like Oakland. I think they can take advantage of that schedule, build up some wins, and comfortably make the playoffs in the American League.
Excellent work. Thank you, Garion.
Garion, you're the best.
Love chatting with you. Guys, can you believe it? We are looking ahead once again.
We are?
Continuing our look ahead, talking NHL Futures next. Can anyone unseat the reigning MVP, Connor McDavid?
Yep. Yes.
Hit my bet. Whoa! I'm back, baby. It's Poppy time.
New customers, download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets instantly.
So, the player you benched just went off. But with Best Ball on DraftKings, that ends here. Enter a contest and snake draft your team. Every week, you'll automatically rack up points from all your top scorers. No ads or drops, no trades, no I should have played him instead. Teams with the most points by season's end take home cash prizes. So head to the DraftKings Fantasy app and get in on our biggest Best Ball contest ever with this latest offer.
You know, betting without a game plan is a little like skating a giant ramp without helmet and pads. I wouldn't risk it. And I wouldn't bet without a game plan. DraftKings Sportsbook provides you with tools to set a realistic budget and time limits, so you're ready to bet responsibly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook and Casino apps to learn more about how you can practice safe bets.
I'm a busy man. That's why I love Best Ball on DraftKings. Snake draft once and I'm done. Each week, DraftKings makes sure my actual lineup is my optimal lineup. I don't got time to set a lineup every week. I mean, to be honest with you, I don't even know what city I'm in right now. That's New York. Sorry.
Play season-long fantasy with Best Ball. Just draft once and you're done. No roster management. New customers can download the DraftKings Fantasy app to get in on our biggest Best Ball contest ever with this latest offer.
All right, it's the Thursday after the Wednesday after the Major League Baseball All-Star Game. Listen, what I'm getting at is it's a slow time of year on the sports calendar. It's not super jam-packed. But what we do a great job of here at DraftKings is looking ahead. We don't live in the past. We live in the future with Jeff Ulrich and AJ Scholes, two of our hockey heads here at DraftKings. And we are in it to win it. We are in it to help you win money on the DraftKings Sportsbook, moving ahead, looking ahead into the future of the NHL.
All right, guys, so NHL Futures. Let's look at
Passionate.
some awards
Passionate.
futures. Guys, at the top of the board are the names obviously you would expect. You have Connor McDavid plus 100 to win the Hart as league MVP. But for this segment, we want to take you to take a shot with someone who's got some longer odds because it's kind of boring to say it's going to be Connor McDavid
Yeah,
again.
dude, get a life, guys.
So, Jeff, who's someone who could swoop in and snag it?
Yeah, it's boring. It's also not really smart to bet a guy at plus 100 in a contact sport, probably. So, as good as McDavid is, I mean, he deserves to be the favorite, obviously. Jack Hughes at plus 1,800, I think is a very, very solid price. I mean, this award is much like the MVP award in the NFL is like basically just the best quarterback. The Hart Trophy is kind of becoming the best center in the NHL award. And I mean, center is the dominant position. Obviously, gets the the highest profile. And obviously when a center has a good season, it gets a little bit more hoopla. But Jack Hughes at plus 1,800 on an elite team, elite usage, coming off his best season. He's really just got, I think there's just so much more runway with Jack Hughes that we haven't even seen yet. And he's in a very, very good spot with the Devils. So I'm surprised that he can still get plus 1,800. Like, you look at the players underneath him. I like Leon Draisaitl, but man, he's got a big mountain to climb to be the best player on his team. To Chuck at plus 1,200, I don't know how much more upside there is there. You've got a couple wingers underneath him. I think Jack Hughes at plus 1,800, playing the marquee center position on a good team. Just a really dominant player. I don't think we've seen the best from him yet. I think that's exactly where I would go in the Hart Trophy right now.
All right, AJ, do you have a dark horse pick here?
Well, I don't know how dark horse you consider the number 2 option here in Nathan McKinnon, but plus 900 is a lot more value than plus 100 here. McKinnon has never won one. Despite astronomical numbers, he's almost a lock for the 90s. Last year put up 111. I just think he has a ton of upside here. Austin Matthews at 1,600, I think is also viable. Jeff was mentioning top center plays here. Matthews is always in contention to potentially lead the league in goals. So I think he's viable as the Hart. Other than that, I think getting anywhere outside of, really past Jack Hughes, probably not a viable option. He's maybe the longest shot. You could say maybe Kucherov if he had some sort of astronomical year. But again, Jeff's kind of right. Focusing on centers makes a lot more sense.
How about in the leading goal scorer market? Oh my God, look who's at the top of the board again. Plus 220 this time. Give me someone else, Jeff. Give me someone else who makes for a logical top goal scorer selection here on the DK Sportsbook.
The real shame that Connor McDavid can't play goal and the Oilers can just be great everywhere. But he
Jeff,
can't.
This was our team. They let us down last year. I'm still not over it.
It's getting flashbacks here. This is tough scene on live camera. But look, I mean, we mentioned obviously the centers of the Hart Trophy, but I mean, we're talking goal scorers here. I think Kirill Kaprizov at plus 3,000 is an extremely good number, much like Jack Hughes. I just think this number is a little bit too big when you're starting to look at some of the names underneath him. Kaprizov has scored at a really solid pace, pretty close to what we're getting from guys like Rantanen and Tage Thompson at plus 1,500. And much like, another Russian winger, I mean, the Wild's offense flows directly through Kirill Kaprizov when he is on the ice. Power play goes through him. And I just think there's more left from Kaprizov. He's been a little bit banged up for the last couple of years, but if he plays a full season, I think he will get in the running for this kind of, goal scoring event. I think he's got a 60-goal season in him. And again, you're getting plus 3,000 on a 26-year-old entering the prime years on a team in Minnesota with not many other options. There's just not going to be much shot competition for Kirill Kaprizov. I think plus 3,000 is a really good number, and I like this one quite a bit for top goal scorer.
I like that number much better than plus 220, AJ. Who you got?
I like Jason Robinson at plus 2,000 here. Was pretty close last season, was in the mix, top in the league in goals here. So I think he could put himself back there. The Dallas Stars have made some improvements to the team as a whole. I think that'll help Robinson's numbers potentially here. I also think David Pastrnak at plus 800. And if you're looking for a real dark horse, plus 3,500 for Alex Ovechkin. A bounce back year for him. It's not outside the realm of possibility to see him putting his name back in the mix. He had 42 goals in 73 games last season. Easily could have been pushing 50 if he had played, those extra handful of games. So he's kind of my darkest dark horse option, but as my favorite, I like Jason Robinson.
Ovi going to be turning 38 here in a couple months.
Absolutely ancient.
Beautiful.
For the sport of hockey.
Beautiful, I know.
Just so old for hockey, not for the earth. An award that McDavid can't win. We think he can't win. He hasn't done it yet. Is the Norris for the league's top D-man, okay? Cale Makar, the winner 2 years ago. Heavy favorite, plus 175 to win it again. Jeff, anybody else a little further down the board here that you're liking?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that Makar is a little bit too short here. I think this is more of a wide open award, like even with the Hart. Miro Heiskanen at plus 1,400 is just a player. I fully expect him to win this award one day, and I don't really have a problem taking him like this year. He's coming into his fourth or fifth season, I can't remember, but he's just a good two-way player, and he just gets a lot of offensive starts. Klingberg is not on that team anymore taking up a bunch of power play time. Like Heiskanen could easily put together a big point season in one of the next couple seasons. And he's good defensively, plays big minutes. The minutes and the usage really only going up there from Miro Heiskanen. So plus 1,400, I really do not hate that. There's a couple guys further back too. I think you can take shots in this category. Evan Bouchard of the Edmonton Oilers, he's going to be in a high usage role too. I mean, his role with the Oilers only going to go up. He could easily, Bouchard really has a realistic shot of leading all defensemen in points just because of who he's attached to. You know, is it going to happen next year? I don't know, but there's the realm of possibility. That's the kind of upside you're talking about with Evan Bouchard. Plus 6,000, you don't need a big investment there. So a couple guys I like outside of the top couple plays.
All right, AJ, who do you like?
Well, I think you could realistically, most seasons pare this down to a two-man race unless somebody does something like Erik Karlsson did last year. So between Makar and Adam Fox, obviously getting better value on Fox at plus 500. If you want a long shot, Brandon Montour plus 5,000 down in Florida, 73 points last year in 80 games. So he could certainly be in the mix. That 70 to probably 75 to 80 range is most likely what'll win it. Obviously, Karlsson did something astronomical last season. If he's back in San Jose, which is looking less and less likely every day, it is not impossible that he could win again. He comes in at plus 3,000. Of course, if he moves to Carolina or to Pittsburgh, where he's been linked, those numbers are going to drop. We saw that when he moved to San Jose while Brent Burns was there. Then, of course, Burns moves on. Karlsson does what he did last season as the top dog there. So if he gets moved, I think he's out of contention here. But if you want to take a shot that he stays in San Jose, plus 3,000, pretty good value.
All right, dudes, we got about a minute to go in show, so let's just talk Vezina here real quick. It seems like this could be the department to maybe hit somebody with longer odds because no one saw Olmark, for example, winning it last year. Jeff, who you got?
Yeah, absolutely. Philip Gustafsson at plus 2,000, great young goalie on the Minnesota Wild. Had a really good season last year, basically got himself in Vezina contention in like 40 games. Plus 2,000, I think, is very fair. And then, look, I'm doing a segment with my guy, AJ. Tristan Jarry at plus 5,000. He has shown flashes of being an elite goalie, and he's gotten himself in the contention for this award. He just needs to put it all together. I think the Penguins probably have a bounce-back year. I think plus 5,000 is just a fair number.
All right, AJ, who do you like?
Even I'm not betting Tristan Jarry at plus 5. I don't think he's going to play enough games to win the Vezina. Whether or not he's good is a different story, but injury woes usually keep him out of there. One name that I think is a long shot you could look at, how about John Gibson? He's basically said he's not going to come back to Anaheim, so if he gets moved to a contender, plus 5,000 is the investment now. If he goes somewhere good, you're going to see that line drop, so might as well take a shot while he's technically still listed as a member of the Ducks.
All right, good stuff, guys. That is a show. Thank you for looking at NHL
awesome,
Futures
y'all.
with us. Madden
Really good
6-game slate starts with the Chargers and Lions at noon. We will be back tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Eastern. We'll see you then.